Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for January 20th through the 26th. This week is about ego transformation. We have the Sun coming into aspect with Pluto, our last quarter moon in the sign of Scorpio, Venus and Mars are making an aspect, and some other things that we'll get into this week. So lots of themes around transformation and around seeing yourself from a different vantage point. My name is Shauna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I am so honored to share the astrology of this week with you from a depth psychological perspective. So, one of the biggest, or I would say most relevant, most forward-facing transits that's happening this week is that the Sun is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. And so we may have already started to feel this in the previous week since the Sun moved into Aquarius last week. But this week is when the Sun and Pluto are at the same point in the zodiac. So in this case, it's at 1 degrees of Aquarius. And the Sun symbolizes our ego, our conscious self, our conscious awareness. So in that way, the Sun is a symbol of what we consciously identify with and as, the things that we are aware of about ourselves, and also the things that we are consciously focused on from time to time. The Sun also is correlated to our sense of vitality, our sense of vibrancy in life, and our ability to be in positions of leadership or being seen or having some sort of level of influence or I was going to say authority. I mean, I think that we kind of get into Saturn territory there, but the Sun is also a symbol of our relationship to being in positions of influence, and then how we experience other people who have an influence on us. The Sun is also connected to paternal figures, so either literally people in our lives who are paternal figures to us, whether that's in your family system or people that you know in your life, and what our conceptualization is of paternal figures or people in leadership roles, people in a position of influence. So those are some of the things that the Sun represents. And the Sun is this, really is this centering force. So we can also think of it this way, in that psychologically, the ego is the part of psyche that we are oriented around. So our ego is sort of an organizing principle in our lives. Our ego helps us to have a sense of cohesion of like, yes, this is who I am. This is what I am. This is the kind of person that I am. And in that way, in that all of the planets orient around the Sun, the things that we do in life, the way that we view our life orients around this conscious awareness, this conscious understanding of who we are and what kind of person we are. And so, of course, there's so much other material in the psyche. There is the subconscious, the unconscious. We could even say, if we're talking about the ego, the contrast of that would be the instincts, or sometimes this is called the id, that part of self that is primal or instinctual or intuitive or more feeling focused, or the superego, the part of us that that conceptualizes life via the rules that have been imposed on us or the rules that society tells us this is how it is. But that's not what this talk is about today. So we're talking today about the ego. And so I'm really emphasizing this because it's so important, I think, in understanding the Sun in astrology, and the Sun as a representation of our consciousness and of our ego, is that the ego is not bad. We need the ego as a function in order to function in the world and to have a sense of cohesion and a sense of boundaries also. And with that, a sense of vitality. Because without a healthy, strong, vibrant, and flexible ego, if we don't have that, things sort of get diffused, and then our vibrancy and our light also gets diffused. Our energy gets diffused. And then that's where, we get into things like feeling like low mood or anxious, or feeling confused in our relationships, things like this. So this part of us, this conscious awareness, and so I'll give you an example of this also. This is maybe more of a mundane or silly example. Those of you who have been with me, who have been following me for a little while in this journey of life, may know that at one point in time my hair was red. And I had red hair and I loved it, and I had it for many, many years. And that became a part of the way that I saw myself. That became a part of my ego identity, that I am a person with red hair. And, I think it's important to say that the ego consciousness is something that is both external and surface, and then also internal. Because the things that are on the outside give us a certain kind of feeling. And so there's this penetrative effect of what we have on the outside, what we experience on the outside, and what that means to us at an internal level. And so for me, having this red hair that I really liked, that helped me to feel this sense of connection to myself, to my passion, to my sense of pleasure and enjoyment of my own, like being able to adorn myself, so to say. And at some point, things changed where my hair started to become more gray and more of this cool tone, and so I needed to change it. And it was actually kind of like jarring or shocking for me. Or not that I needed to change it, I wanted to change it. And I found it sort of like, I didn't really expect this, and I think this is maybe why I'm using it as an example, is because I think I didn't realize how much I internalized, like, oh yes, I am a person with red hair, and what that did for me. And so changing something external required me to change something internal. And I don't know if I could quite explain to you in words. It's not like I have a sentence that can say, yes, now I am this kind of person. But it sort of required me to look at like how I had internalized as a part of myself being this kind of way, or this kind of person. And so I am sharing that with you because this particular week we have a transit that shows that there is something around the ego, the sun, that is being transformed. Pluto. Pluto is a symbol of the life, death, rebirth process. Pluto is about going deep into something and getting to really at the root of a situation to better understand it and to give it fresh air and life and space. Often a process involving Pluto, this going deep into something, exploring it, and then giving it space and air and visibility, that often can feel not incredibly pleasant, because there is a reason why things are so deeply rooted. It is usually because it is unconscious in some way, and that usually is because there is some quality there of that phenomenon that we feel discomfort with in some way, that we are unintentionally maybe hiding or rejecting or marginalizing in some way. And so Pluto tends to be this process of digging deeply into something, exploring it thoroughly, and then allowing for a release, allowing for a metaphorical death, metaphorical transmutation, and then that metaphorical death allows for new growth to emerge. It allows for something else to come in. And so I think that this can look like this week possibly revealing something that is hidden or mysterious or rejected. It can look like realizing a core or fundamental truth about yourself or about someone else, or maybe about something that's happening in the world. It can also simply be exploring deep or intense issues. Pluto is also a symbol of intensity. And so it can simply be about really feeling something very intensely and experiencing something consciously in a way that maybe feels more intense and more just like really like vibrating with the sense of life. There is this phenomenon around renewal, around this life, death, rebirth process, around beginning again. And yes, most certainly this transformation of the ego, this transformation of a part of your personality or the way that you consciously identify with yourself or with something, that there is something here that is being renewed. And I will also say this, because Pluto is now in Aquarius for the next 20 years or so, Pluto themes, the rebirth process, the digging into things, getting to the root of things, Pluto qualities are inherently encoded into our experience of Aquarius transits for the next 20 years. So anytime that a planet moves through the sign of Aquarius, it will make a conjunction to Pluto. And so this flavors and colors Aquarius. And so I think this is also, we can think of this as every time that the sun moves through Aquarius during this season, during late January to early February, it is the sun, the consciousness, the conscious ego passing over Pluto. And we can also think of it as this cleansing and renewal and burning off of anything that is decaying or has decayed, that anything like that can be burned off via the Pluto. And so I think that this week in particular, really beautiful time for noticing, okay, so number one, noticing, what's coming up as I'm talking about this, and noticing where maybe, possibly, there is something that wants to be explored or something that wants to fall away. And this is where Pluto starts, is that there is something either that is like hidden or mysterious, and it wants some airtime. It wants some non-judgmental exploration. And maybe sometimes there's some release or shedding or transmutation that happens. Now, we have another layer of these kinds of themes, because this week we also have our last quarter moon in the sign of Scorpio. This is happening on Tuesday, the 21st of January. And Scorpio has very similar qualities to Pluto. The last quarter moon is the part in the lunation between the full moon and the new moon. So it is when the moon is waning, it's becoming smaller in the sky to our eye. And so this week in particular also is this theme around looking at things that we want to experience at an emotional level and things that emotionally we may want to let go of or release or transmute. I think this week in particular, there's this theme around processing emotions, around processing information, releasing, cleansing, healing, exploring the unseen, the unheard, or the unsaid. So this may involve realizing something that maybe you have been feeling, or that you have been wanting to say and that you didn't even realize that that's how you were feeling, or that that is something that has been on your mind. That can also come this week as well. So I think between the Sun, Pluto, and the last quarter moon in Scorpio, such a beautiful time to keep an eye out for where you can be surprised about what it is that maybe you've been feeling that you didn't realize that you've been feeling, or maybe you knew that you felt this way, but you didn't quite realize the impact that it's had on you. And I will also say about Aquarius in general as a sign, with the sun moving through this place, Aquarius tends to be a symbol of reinvention, revolution, taking a structure or taking something that has been very foundational and changing it so that it feels like it makes sense, so that it feels more authentic, and so that it actually meets the needs or the requirements of the thing. Aquarius is also very connected to authenticity and humanitarian issues, and finding your ability to be authentic within community as well. Aquarius is very connected to groups and collectives, and how we connect with people who have similar interests and values, and how we can even maintain our sense of integrity while we're in a group, or while we're around other people who maybe don't share our same values. How we can have our own sense of self, again, the ego, and then also allow others to maintain their sense of self without having to modify ourselves in some way. That is very much an Aquarius tone. Okay. So again, always love hearing how this is sitting with you, how this is feeling for you. I think that for some folks, of course, this is going to be something that you feel more intensely depending on what's happening in your life right now. If you're already going through some sort of transformational process, whether that is simply via your own healing process or exploratory journey, or if you are literally having a Pluto transit, then yeah, this is going to probably be felt a little bit more. You're going to feel some of the connections here. And for some of us, it may not be as, I guess I would say, like acute. And also, you may see it with people in your lives or people in your circle. Okay, so another part of what's happening this week is Venus in Pisces is making a trine to Mars in Cancer. And so we know it's a trine because they are in the same element. So Venus in the water sign of Pisces, Mars in the water sign of Cancer. So water signs tend to be about feelings, emotion, intuition, and relationships. So Venus, of course, is the planet of relationships, also beauty, aesthetics, harmony, attraction, allure, sensuality, and how we experience relationship in general, and how we experience feminine issues or femininity in general, what that means to us. In contrast, Mars is a symbol of our enthusiasm for life, our decisive action, our confidence, our being moved to do something. Mars is also very much connected to guardianship and protection. And Mars is connected to our experience of masculine issues or our concepts around masculinity in general. And so it's interesting that these two are coming together in this way. A trine is a helpful, harmonious, easeful aspect typically. we think of trine as like things, they're on the same page, both Venus and Mars in this case, because they're both in water signs. They're like, yeah, are you into feelings and like intuitive stuff and like relationships? And they're like, yeah, I totally am. Okay, great, good. We are on the same page. Now, that being said, Mars in Cancer is also retrograde right now. So it's this like Mars that's very, right now, it's very slow, and it's also in a place that tends to be counterintuitive for us. Our social norm with Mars is that it is quick moving, it's active, and it tends to, in astrology, there tends to be a value system around Mars being in signs that are either fire or air. That more stereotypical masculine quality. So I think in some ways we could say that that Mars maybe is a little bit different than the stereotypical Mars that we would think, and or possibly there's maybe a little bit of challenge or a little bit of working through with this particular Mars in Cancer. So again, of course, we know this is not a new energy. We know that Mars has been retrograde since December of last year. We know that Mars just moved back into Cancer recently in the last couple of weeks. And so Mars has been here, and it is making this contact with Venus. So I think that we can also look to this week around bringing some healing or some soothing, and especially some relational healing around whatever the Mars experiences have been over the last couple of weeks. And I would even say like since December as well, because Mars is still carrying that energy of the retrograde. So I think there can be some healing, repairing around your confidence, around your passion or enthusiasm for life. I think that this Venus Mars could be revitalizing, possibly revitalizing around what gets you excited about life, what you're really feeling, like revitalizing your sense of your emotional world and how your emotions propel you into action. And the inverse of that, how maybe emotions sort of like clog up the ability to act, possibly. I think that there's some potential here for bringing in some healing balm to this area of life. And I will also say Venus in Pisces this week is making a helpful but subtle sextile aspect to Uranus and Taurus. And so this also feels like this little burst of enthusiasm, possibly like changing something that maybe you've been doing for a long time. And so, yeah, I'm like really excited for us to have this aspect. It feels like this soothing balm to maybe things that have been like a little inflamed or a little agitating more recently. So, yeah, very curious to see how this shakes out and how you experience this week. The last aspect that we're having this week is Mercury in Capricorn, making a square to Chiron in Aries. And so Mercury is our logical thinking function. It's our mind, our thought process, our communication, also just like language, communication, messages in general, how we interact with other people, how we transmit an idea. Mercury is also very connected to our ability to connect with the divine or spirit guides or ancestors, in that it is this transmitter. Mercury also rules over oracles and divination and that kind of thing. I think this aspect is a little more tense because it's a square, so it typically squares tell us that there's maybe something that feels a little bit like confrontational or like something to like chew on or possibly work through this week. And Chiron typically is called the wounded healer. I like to think of Chiron as more of a healer, a mentor, and a symbol for the ways that we give and receive, like especially around how you give and receive your energy, how you give and receive your wisdom, your time, and the way that you sacrifice your time and energy for someone or something else. And so I think that this particular aspect in this week might be around confronting thoughts around your healing process and how you sacrifice or devote yourself to others. I think that Chiron also kind of holds these qualities around one's purpose or vocation. And when I say vocation, I don't mean like your job or your career. I mean vocation in that sense of like the things that you do that feel meaningful and purposeful and of purpose to you in a way that you are contributing to something in the world. And this is because Chiron in the mythology, that was what he did. He helped other people to become more of the thing that they were trying to become, or more of the thing that they were trying to study. And so he was really this this helper, healer. He was also an astrologer and a physician, all of those things. So anyways, I digress. I think that there's so much with Chiron around healing, but also like the giving and receiving and the sacrificing of your energy and of your life force, and the difference between being devoted to something and a sacrifice that makes sense versus sacrifice that is compulsory, or that is giving over so much that there is a sense of depletion, or there is a sense of harm that comes to oneself. Also, Mercury in Capricorn is making a helpful but subtle aspect, sextile to Neptune. And so I think this also is around making sense of your gifts and your skills and the way that you feel like you are giving to yourself or to your community or to the world, like the things that you are doing that that have meaning for you. Okay, so those are my thoughts. Some reflection questions for this week, given this astrology. I have 3 for you. The first reflection question is, how is your personality being transformed at this time? Second reflection question is, what would you like to release in the next 2 weeks? This is connecting into the lunar cycle and this releasing process over the next 2 weeks. And third reflection question for this week is, where is your passion, your enthusiasm, and your vitality guiding you? What is it guiding you towards? Where are you being sort of like nudged via your passion, vitality? And how can you even like tune into that a little bit more this week? Okay, so I'm going to shuffle the tarot cards. And as I'm shuffling, I invite you to get into a relaxed place, relaxed position, whether that's sitting or moving. You can close your eyes or you can focus on something that feels centering for you. And as you're here, bring your focus into any sensory experience that you have right now. and focus on that experience. It could be your breathing, it could be a sound of my voice, or a sound that you hear off in the distance. Could be the temperature in the room or the sensation of the clothes on your skin. Good. And then imagine yourself in this beautiful bubble of light. And this bubble of light can be any color that feels good to you. This bubble is protective, it's clarifying, and it is a space for you to exist in this moment. This is also a beautiful time to invite in the presence of your spiritual guidance team, ancestors, whoever or whatever it is that you have a relationship with that is a benevolent guiding force. And ask that they're here with you to protect you, to guide you, and to communicate with you in a way that you can easily understand right now. We are so very grateful for their presence here. Okay, and then finally, draw your focus into your heart space at the very center of your chest. And in this place, maybe a question, an inquiry, a wondering arises for you. Good. And I'm picking 3 cards today. If you want to pick a number between 1 and 3, you can pick that now, and that card will be special for you. Okay, so 3 cards today. First card is the 8 of Swords. And if you're familiar with Tarot, you might be like, oh, 8 of Swords, oh, that's scary. I think this card can be a little scary or can be experienced as a little negative, but I quite like it in some scenarios, and I will tell you why. So this card in some systems is correlated to Jupiter. So in some systems it's correlated to Jupiter in Gemini, and the keyword bondage. So and then this imagery in this particular deck, there's a person who is sort of like tied very loosely with ropes, and they're blindfolded, and then there are 8 swords like stuck in the ground around them. And so the 8 of Swords ultimately is a symbol of feeling trapped or feeling bound or feeling restricted, feeling like you don't have any choice or autonomy or ability to move from where you are now. It can be a feeling of stuckness or a feeling of boundness. And the beauty of this card is that it typically tells us that that thing is an illusion, that bondage is an illusion. And I want to say, I think that it's not saying that you are not bound or that you are not having that experience, but it is saying that there are a lot of things that you could do to exit the situation or to change this feeling of restriction or trappedness or bondage. And I don't quite know what that is for you. You're going to have to tell me what comes to mind, and then also we'll look at the other cards to get a little more information. And I find it sometimes heartening to get this card, because if you are feeling that way, this tells me that there are things that you can do. to get out of a feeling of restriction or trappedness. And actually, as I'm thinking about this in this moment, I'm just realizing this feels very much like Sun-Pluto to me, in that possibly, maybe, a part of your conscious awareness, the things that you realize this week, may be that you can escape this bound situation, that something that maybe has been challenging, that you can change it, that you have power. Pluto is so much about power and control. And so I think this card in some ways can be very empowering. And it can be a reminder that, like, yeah, you can do some things here. You can take the blindfold off. The ropes are pretty loose. Like, you can untie them, and then you can just walk forward. You can do this. I'm always like very cautious when I get a card like this around. Like, I don't want to downplay or unacknowledge where there are valid restrictions or pain, because I think that those things are real and valid, and there's something here around encouraging you to look at the ways that you can untangle or undo some of the knots here, some of the restrictions. Okay, let's see what the other cards have to say. The second card is the Tower. So in some systems, this card is connected with Mars. So very interesting, because we have the Eight of Swords connected with Jupiter and Gemini, and currently Jupiter is in Gemini, and then we've talked a little bit about Mars being very active. Okay, so the Tower also can be, I think, sometimes a card that feels like a little nervousy, because the Tower is about change. It's about okay, so first blush, it can be about unexpected change, but really I like this way of looking at the Tower as change that has been building. And we can think of it, so I'm in California, and California is a place where we have earthquakes from time to time. And what I learned in grade school about earthquakes is that they happen because the plates of the earth, the tectonic plates, are like ever so slightly moving, and they'll move like little bit by little bit, and then over time pressure gets built up, and then at some point a certain amount of pressure gets built up to where they like jar like into a different resting place. And so I feel that, I've never really thought about this before, but I'm feeling that with the Tower, where there's something that has like been, that has been like a pressure has been building, and then the Tower moment is when the change happens, and it feels very unexpected, because we're like, what the heck? I did not see that. I did not visibly see or hear or anticipate that, but there has been something that's been building prior to this earthquake, this change. And so whenever we get this card, typically we can look back in time, or we can look at what's happening now, and we can start to question, okay, where have you felt like maybe something like doesn't have a solid foundation, or it's kind of ready to be changed, but it's inconvenient to change it? Or where has something already kind of been possibly ready for transition or change? And I don't think all Tower experiences have to be super radical. I think sometimes it can be this very internal process, and it can feel very liberating, because also, like in this earthquake analogy, the pressure is released, and so it's like this minor, actually not minor, sometimes very major disruption, but from the Earth's viewpoint, the pressure has been released, and then it can settle again. And so, yeah, like I don't say this to, I know that, yeah, sometimes we can get nervous when we have the tower, but I share this with you because I want you to know that the more that we can tune in to, and this is why we use astrology and tarot and contemplation, is because ideally we're trying to tune in to the things that we already know that we maybe don't know that we know, and we're trying to tune in to uh, what is happening in the moment. And when we have also the Eight of Swords around like feeling trapped, feeling restricted, and then we have the Tower, this to me is like, oh, there's like a breakthrough, a breakout, a like being freed from something. So I find this very heartening. And I think, side note, I think this is such a fantastic example of how cards that maybe tend to stereotypically be stereotyped as bad or scary, that they can actually be very validating and helpful and empowering. So I want you to remember that anytime you get another card that you feel like maybe is bad. Okay, and then the last card is the Queen of Cups. So water on water. Queen being this element of water in some systems, and then also, of course, the cups being the element of water. I love the Queen of Cups as a card, and in this deck, it's a person who is standing with their hand on their hip, and they're wearing this really cool, like, purple to green cape, and they have a little crown, and they're just like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, I'm the Queen of Cups. No big deal. So, like, this very kind of, like, confident but unassuming quality. So the Queen of Cups is the embodiment of many things coming to my mind. So, of course, there's this theme around intuition, of possibly our conceptualization around maternal themes or femininity or caretaking. That being the queen. The queen can also represent this, like the feminine power, the quality of empowering feminine issues or feminine experiences. And of course, being a court card, it's a symbol of authority and impact and influence. I find the Queen of Cups to sometimes symbolize embodying psychic or intuitive experiences, really being a seer or being able to see, having an intuitive sense of what may happen in the future, and also healing and like energetic healing and the healing balm that can happen via relationships or via ritual. There's this, like very nurturing kind of quality to the Queen of Cups. And it can also symbolize where a person embodies nurturing or intuitive or even psychic qualities in a way that is seen by others. So I don't know, but as I'm looking at this, it's making me wonder if you realizing the way that you can possibly break out of restriction, that maybe helps you to access more fully your feminine energy. Like, again, of course, whatever that means to you, and helps you to access your intuition, your emotions, and your capacity to experience healing, both within yourself and then maybe possibly to be a force or an example for others as well, that there's this impact or influence sort of quality to it. Really, really love this spread this week. It feels like such a beautiful progression and lots of themes around feeling more empowered and more free, and also in a way that is very embodied. Like the Queen of Cups, there's this quality to it that is about really being in the body, being in relationship, and it's not as like passionate and intense as maybe the Queen of Wands or even the Queen of Pentacles, but there is this like embodied sense of connection to yourself, to the other world, and to others. All right. That is your astrology forecast for this week. I hope that you enjoyed this. As always, I love hearing from you and hearing how this is sitting with you and how your week is going, whether you listen to it up front or maybe throughout the week or later in the week. Thank you so much for listening and for being here with me. My name is Shauna McGrath. If you want to find out more about me and my work, you can find me on my website, theastropsyche.com. I am wishing you a wonderful week, sending you lots of love, and I'll see you soon.